Hello everyone, my name is Lucian Constantine, and welcome to the show. Recently I finished A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking, a cosmologist and physicist who had ALS and made several discoveries in science through the 80s and 90s, and worked with Roger Penrose and several other leading physicists. He talks about early on in the book about Bertrand Russell, who had a lecture where a student said that Bertrand Russell was wrong, and that the universe was found based on tortoises. And Bertrand Russell asked the student what the tortoises was founded upon, and the student responded with, "It's tortoises all the way down." He also talks about Aristotle's paper on the heavens, which discusses how the earth is round due to the curvature of the shadow reflected off the moon, and how in the North Pole you can see the North Star. It will appear above the observer, whereas in the equator it will appear at its surface. He points out that there is a theory called the Big Bang Theory, which is the universe started at a mixture of hot and cold temperatures and expanded into a finite time. There are several theories as to whether the universe is infinite or finite, and the author Stephen Hawking goes over explanations as to which one is which. He also talks about black holes and wormholes, which is in 1969, Carl Wheeler, John Wheeler, made a discovery of black holes, which is an empty space in, in which is an empty field of space. And Stephen Hawking talks about how God didn't have a choice in making the universe, and pointing out uh, an argument from Augustine, which is that God never changes. So it would be a contradiction to assume that God would change. There's another book whose author I forgot, called The Evolution of God, which goes over how God changes from time to time, from generation to generation. So if you're interested in other books, then I suggest you go read that one. Then he talks about how an astronaut who goes into a black hole at 11:59 and an outside observer at 10:59 waits for the astronaut at 11 o'clock will never witness the arrival of the astronaut, because the time of the astronaut is different from the time of the observer at 10:59. He also talks about the arrows of time. One of the chapters of the book is called, um, not specifically, but paraphrasically, is called "The Arrows of Time," where where he uses the reference of a teacup shattering, and how if you rewind it on the film, you know it is going backwards, because in in modern or common time, time doesn't reverse but moves backwards, and if it did reverse, it would collapse onto itself. He also talks about space-time and how it's related to time and energy and entropy itself. There is a recent article about proposing that time goes in reverse instead of going forward. If I can find it, I will leave a link down in the description below. So I read Afterglow of Creation, courtesy of a recommendation by Cosmic Skeptic, or Alex O'Connor, not personally, of course, but he recommended in his book recommendations The Afterglow of Creation, which discusses the 1960s Arnold Penzias, Rob Dyke, and Rob Wilson on the Cold Load experiment, which was basically an experiment to or to understand the background microwave radiation left over from the Big Bang. The problem with the experiment was that there were bird droppings onto the experiment, and that prevented the experiment from going through. And this is something that is repeated in Stephen Hawking's book. And while I was disappointed in the other book, The Absolute Creation, for not giving an answer to what happened before the Big Bang, it is still a good book to read. Now it's perhaps a bit too harshly on the findings from the other book because no one can know what happened before the Big Bang, and it will probably be undiscoverable. So what I enjoyed about the book is that it's very clear in concise language. The authors of science know how to write objectively and can write clearly as well. There are parts of the book that I did not understand, like cone, the cone diagram is shown over how light emits at a different frequency throughout the cone, and it shows a cone like this that bends forward and then and then exceeds outwards. That I did not understand, but the rest I did. Um, he gives a glossary of definitions like pulsars to neutron stars to gravitons to atoms to nucleus and to different theories of time. The theory, the Big Bang theory, was heavily influenced by George Gallo, and he made several involvements into the Big Bang theory, which is that the universe started at a hot and expanding, hot and cold temperatures, and there was just the position of those two temperatures, and it expanded over time. If you're interested in a further read, I suggest reading Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot, which is a wonderful book and has one of the most beautiful passages in the end of the chapter, which is a "We Are Here" speech, which is basically we are here, and all the for all the wars and violence caused, all the supreme leaders and divine kings, all the corrupt politicians, and all the workers live on this dot here, suspended on a sunbeam. This book was written in 1988, and it's a good overview of the exploration of science, which I'm trying to read more of as I'm taking more math and science classes in school, particularly Algebra 1. So I hope you enjoy. And another note, the, the teacup is referenced in Hannibal frequently when Hannibal Lecter refers to Vil as a shattered teacup that falls on the table and cannot be backed up, which refers to Stephen Hawking's theory of the arrow of time and how time does not reverse backwards or forwards. Backwards or in a cycle, it flows forward in time. There is another author which discusses space-time. It's called Immanuel Kant, Prolegomena to Any Future Metaphysics, and I'll read you an excerpt which discusses space-time through the use of a mirror. What can be more quote, what can be more similar in every respect, in every part more like to my hand and to my ear than the images in a mirror? And yet I cannot put such a hand as is seen in the mirror in the place of its original. For if this is a right hand, that in the mirror is a left one, and the image or reflection of the right ear is a left one, which never can serve as a substitute for the other. There are, in this case, no internal differences which our understanding could determine by thinking alone. Yet the differences are eternal, and the senses teach, for notwithstanding their complete equality and similarity, the left hand cannot be enclosed in the same bounds as the right one. They are not congruent. The glove on one hand cannot be used for the other. What is the solution? These objects are not representations of things as they are in themselves, and some pure understanding would organize them, but sensuous intuitions, that is, appearances, whose possibility rests upon the relations of certain things unknown in themselves to someone else, viz. to our sensibility. Space is space in the form of the external intuition of the sensibility, and the internal determination of any space is possible only by the determination of its external relation to the whole space, only by the determination of its external relation to the whole of space of which it is a part. In other words, by relation to its to external sense. That is to say, the part is possible only to the whole, which is never the case with things in themselves as objects of the mere understanding, but can well be the case with the mere appearances. So basically, in that book, Immanuel Kant, who wrote the Critique of Pure Reason and Judgment and Programmata to Any Future Metaphysics, addresses the question, how can we arrive to a pure understanding? Is it through sense experience? Is it through intuition or sensibility? Or is it through knowledge and reason? There is several theories of philosophy known as epistemology, which is the theory of knowledge, to empiricism, which is the theory of sense perception, and relativism, which is everything is relative, and skepticism, which is the the refusal to initially accept a dogmatic idea. So if you enjoy science or other nonfiction books, then I hope you enjoyed this one as well. And I appreciate all the comments and support you give in this video. It truly means a lot, and I appreciate each and every one of you. And as always, this has been Moose Team signing off.